Right now, more older Americans are living in recreational vehicles than at any point in this country's history. Not for a summer, not for the adventure, for good, because it's the only roof left they can afford. You've probably driven past one without a second thought. An older rig parked at the edge of a lot, curtains drawn, a small generator humming in the dark. It looks almost peaceful, like someone finally chose the open road. Here's what that peaceful picture hides. For a fast-growing number of seniors, moving into an RV isn't the end of the hard part. It's the beginning of it. Most people assume the vehicle is where the fall stops, a rough but stable place to land. It isn't. It's the top of a slope. And what happens after the move is quietly worse than the move itself. We're not going to spend this video on how they got here, the vanished pensions, the checks that don't stretch, the one bad year in your 60s that took everything. That story is real, but it's the story everyone already tells. The one almost nobody tells is the one that comes next. What actually happens to an older American in the months and the years after the RV becomes home. And by the end of this, you'll understand why moving in is the easy part, and why what follows is the part you should really be afraid of. Because it starts with something small, a part that wears out, and from there, it only moves in one direction. Let's clear up the picture most people carry first, because it's the picture that keeps this hidden. When you imagine a senior in an RV, you probably imagine a retiree who chose it. The snowbird, the free spirit who sold the house and hit the road on purpose. That person exists, but they are not who we're talking about, and the difference between them is everything. The retiree who chose the RV has a bank account behind it, a home base to return to, a plan. The senior we're talking about has none of that. The RV isn't their adventure. It's their last asset and their last address at the same time, and that changes what every single thing that happens next actually means. To the world driving past, the two look identical. They could not be living more different lives. And that sameness on the surface is exactly why the scale of this stays invisible. Older adults are the fastest growing group of Americans falling out of housing, and a large and rising share of them are landing not on the street, where they'd be counted, but inside a vehicle, where they mostly aren't. They keep the rig clean. They park somewhere respectable. They look, from 10 feet away, like everyone's idea of a happy retirement on wheels. So the real number climbs year after year in near silence, and the country barely notices, because this version of hardship is very good at looking like a choice. Here's why that matters. Because when a crisis is invisible, nobody builds anything to catch it, and these people are about to need catching. So let's walk through what actually happens next, one step at a time, in the order it tends to arrive. It usually starts with the machine itself, because an RV is not a house, it's a vehicle, and every vehicle is slowly falling apart from the day you buy it. The seniors we're describing are almost never in a new rig. They're in an old one, 10, 15, 20 years old, bought cheap because cheap was all there was. And an old RV breaks. The transmission, the engine, the roof that starts to leak, the water system that fails, the furnace that quits in the middle of winter. For someone with money, that's a repair bill. For an older adult living on a fixed check with nothing behind it, it's a catastrophe because they cannot pay it, and an unpaid repair on the thing you live in doesn't just mean discomfort. It means the walls around you are failing and you can't stop it. And here's the part that turns a bad situation into a trap. The RV is both the home and the way to move the home. When the engine finally dies, they don't lose one thing. They lose their shelter and their mobility in the exact same moment. A house that can't move is still a house. An RV that can't move is a metal box on a patch of asphalt. Someone is about to ask them to leave. That's not an inconvenience, it's the first domino. Which brings us straight to the second thing that happens, because now they need somewhere that box is allowed to sit, and the ground under them is quietly shrinking. This is the part almost nobody outside of it understands. It is getting harder and harder to simply exist in a vehicle anywhere. City after city has passed rules against sleeping in an RV on a public street, against overnight parking, against staying in one spot too long. The lots that used to tolerate an overnight stay have started posting signs and calling tow trucks. Rest areas cap how long you can stay. So an older adult in an RV is pushed into a constant, exhausting churn, moving every night or every few nights, always searching for the next place they won't be told to leave. Always pushed a little farther from the town they know, the pharmacy they use, the people who might check on them. Think about what that means for a person in their 70s. The thing they need most is stability, a place to just be still. And the one thing the system quietly guarantees them is that they can never stop moving. It wears people down in a way that's hard to describe until you've watched it. The exhaustion isn't the repairs or the cold. It's never being allowed to simply stay. And all of this is happening while money steadily bleeds out in ways a house never demanded. People imagine that living in a vehicle must at least be cheap. It isn't, not this version of it. Every mile of that forced churn burns gas, and gas isn't optional when the law won't let you stay still. The furnace runs on propane you have to keep buying. The generator that powers the medical device or the little refrigerator runs on fuel too. Every so often, the body simply demands a real shower and a night plugged into power, so they pay for a campground for one night, money they didn't have, because dignity has a price and going without it too long breaks something in a person. Laundry costs, dumping the tanks costs. Every basic function a house handles silently and for free becomes a separate errand with a separate fee out here. So a fixed check that was already too small to cover rent now has to cover a scattered, endless list of small survival costs instead. And it drains away faster than it ever did indoors. The RV didn't make life cheaper. It just broke the same impossible bill into 100 smaller ones and spread them across every day of the month. If you've watched an older parent or grandparent get pushed towards something like this, or you're afraid you're watching it start, drop it in the comments. I read every one, and I think it helps people to see how many others are living the same thing. Now, the third thing, and this is where it stops being about logistics and starts being about the body. Aging is hard enough in a house with heat, air conditioning, a bathroom down the hall, and a bed you can get into without a fight. Take all of that away and age anyway. In an RV with no working climate control, a heat wave becomes genuinely dangerous, and so does a hard freeze, and older bodies handle neither one well. A bathroom in the middle of the night becomes a logistical problem instead of a short walk. Medications that need refrigeration become a daily gamble when the power is unreliable. Climbing in and out of a high cab wears down knees and hips that were already worn. And a medical emergency, the fall, the chest pain, the stroke, now happens in a vehicle that might be parked far from any hospital with no one nearby who even knows they're there. Here's the quiet truth underneath all of it. People don't just live in these conditions, they deteriorate in them faster than they would have anywhere else. The RV doesn't hold their health steady. It quietly speeds up its decline, and every month inside it, the person who moved in gets a little less able to ever move back out. Picture what a single heat wave actually does to someone in this position. The temperature climbs past 100, and inside a metal box with no air conditioning, it climbs higher still. And an older heart under that kind of strain is in real danger. The only escape is to run the engine and the air, which burns the gas and the money they're rationing, or to leave for somewhere cool, a library, a mall, a cooling center, which means abandoning the rig and everything they own in a place they might get told to move. Winter springs the same trap the other way. Now, picture the person who needs oxygen at night, or a machine to help them breathe while they sleep, tethered to a power supply that dies whenever the generator runs dry. Picture insulin that spoils the afternoon the little refrigerator quits. Picture a fall on the way down from a high step, alone, after dark in a parking lot, with no one who knows your name within a mile of you. None of these are rare events. They're the ordinary hazards of an old body, turned life-threatening by the setting. In a home, each one is manageable. Out here, any single one of them can be the end. If this is putting words to something you've seen up close, a like helps more people find it. Takes 1 second, and it genuinely matters for a topic like this one. The fourth thing that happens is the one people never see coming, and it's the loss of an address. It sounds small, it is anything but. In this country, an address is the key that unlocks nearly everything. Without one, it becomes hard to receive mail, which means hard to receive the very benefit checks and medical notices and official letters a person in crisis depends on. It gets harder to renew an ID, and without an ID, harder to prove who you are for the programs that might help. Some benefits quietly assume a fixed home and get tangled or cut off when there isn't one. So an older adult who is already stretched thin now falls into a paperwork spiral where losing the address makes it harder to hold on to the income, and losing the income makes everything else worse, and each problem feeds the next. And on top of that comes the isolation, which does its own kind of damage. The constant moving cuts them off from neighbors and routines, and the small daily contact that keeps a mind sharp and a spirit steady. Many hide the whole situation from their own children out of shame, keeping their voice bright on the phone and never saying where they really are. So the decline, in the body and in the mind, often happens with no one close enough to notice it's happening at all. And it compounds in ways that feel almost designed to be cruel. To fix the address problem, people try the obvious things: a post office box, a relative's house on paper, a mail forwarding service. But a box isn't a residence, and many of the programs that matter know the difference. Renewing a driver's license or a state ID often requires proof of exactly the thing they've lost, a real place they live, so the one document that proves who they are quietly slips out of reach at the precise moment every agency wants to see it. Miss a single recertification letter for a benefit because it went to an address you no longer have, and the benefit can stop, and restarting it means paperwork you can't receive at an address you don't have. It's a loop with no natural exit, and each turn of it leaves the person a little more erased on paper, a little harder for the system to see even when they're standing right in front of it. Let's make this a single person, because the pattern only really lands when you sit inside one life. Picture a woman, 71, who spent 30 years as a school cafeteria worker and raised 2 kids on her own. She lost her apartment 3 years ago when the rent jumped and her Social Security didn't, and she's been in a used motorhome ever since. Her mornings start early, not by choice, but because she has to be moved before the lot fills and someone complains. She has a mental map of the whole county now. Which library opens at 9? Which grocery store lets her sit for 2 hours? Which church lets her park on Wednesday nights and no others? She takes 4 medications and prays the little refrigerator holds. She showers at a truck stop twice a week, and she calls her daughter every Sunday And in 3 years, she has never once told that daughter where she really sleeps, because she cannot stand to be a weight on a kid who has her own bills to fight. When the motorhome's water pump failed last spring, she spent 6 weeks hauling jugs from a spigot because a $400 repair might as well have been $40,000. She is not falling apart. She is holding it together with a complete discipline most people will never once be tested for. And she is also one broken belt or one bad ticket away from losing the last thing she owns. That isn't a rare story from some corner of the country you'll never drive through. There is a version of her parked within a few miles of wherever you're sitting right now. And now the fifth thing, the turn that makes the title of this honest. Because you'd think, after everything, the law would at least leave them alone in the one shelter they have left. It doesn't. This is where it genuinely gets worse. That shrinking patch of places they're allowed to park comes with tickets, and tickets an older adult can't pay don't disappear. They grow. They turn into penalties, into a boot on the wheel, and eventually into a tow. And when the RV gets towed, here is what actually happens. To get it back, they have to pay the ticket and the towing fee and the daily storage charge, hundreds and then thousands of dollars they do not have and will never have, so they don't get it back. The impound lot keeps it and often sells it, and in a single afternoon, the last thing they owned, their home, their address, their shelter, and their only way to move is simply gone. This is the trapdoor at the bottom of the whole story. The RV felt like the floor. It wasn't. Underneath it was the street itself with nothing left in between. A person who is housed in their own way becomes truly homeless in the time it takes a tow truck to pull away. Sit with the logic of that for a second, because it's worth naming plainly. A person is guilty of nothing but being too poor to afford a wall, and the response is to fine them for it. And when they can't pay the fine, to take the very thing that was keeping them off the sidewalk. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't house them. It just moves the problem from a parking lot to a street corner and makes it worse on the way there. And it leaves a mark, an unpaid citation, a record, one more black box beside their name that makes the next apartment application, the next program, the next fresh start a little more impossible. We tell ourselves these rules keep neighborhoods orderly. What they actually do is take the last stable thing away from the people who have the least and call it enforcement. So let's be honest about where this usually leads, because that's the promise of this video, and it deserves a straight answer. For some, it ends with that tow, and the next stop is a tent, or a doorway, or a shelter they'd spent years avoiding, now with even less than before. For others, the body gives out first, and the ending comes through a hospital, a health crisis severe enough that they land in an emergency room, and from there, with no home to return to, into a nursing facility paid for by Medicaid, spending their final years institutionalized, not because they were sick enough to need it, but because there was nowhere else for them to go. And for a number we will never fully count, it ends in the vehicle itself, in a heat wave or a cold snap that an older body parked in a metal box simply couldn't survive, discovered days later by someone who noticed the rig hadn't moved. That's the part that never makes the news. That's the quiet ending waiting at the bottom of the slope. For a growing number of older Americans, that's not a worst case. That's just a Tuesday that finally came. And for many, the ending isn't a single event, but a grinding loop. A health scare sends them to the emergency room, the most expensive door into care, and the only one that legally can't turn them away. They're patched up, stabilized, and discharged right back to the same parking lot that made them sick, because a hospital can treat a body, but it cannot hand someone a home. So they cycle from the rig to the ER and back to the rig, each trip a little worse than the one before, until a fall or an illness finally lands them somewhere they can't be discharged from, a nursing facility on public assistance, where a person who wanted nothing more than a small place of their own spends their final years inside an institution. Counted at last. Just far too late for the counting to be any kind of mercy. There is a thing that helps, and honesty requires naming it. In a handful of places, there are safe parking programs, lots where an older adult can stop, sleep, stay put, use a bathroom, and sit with someone whose actual job is to help them find their way back into a real home. Where they exist, they interrupt the slope. They give people the one thing the rest of the system takes away, which is permission to be still. But they exist in almost no places, and the spots number in the handful where the need numbers in the thousands. So for the overwhelming majority of the people in this video, the help that would change everything is quietly not there when they reach for it. So let's go back to that rig at the edge of the lot, curtains drawn, generator humming, the one that looked almost peaceful when we started. Now you know what that peace actually costs. Behind those curtains is someone doing the math on a repair they can't afford, watching the places they're allowed to park disappear one by one, aging faster than they should in a box with no heat, losing the address that holds their whole life together, and living one unpaid ticket away from losing even this. The move into the RV was never the bottom. It was the last step before it. These aren't people who found freedom on the open road. They're people balanced on the final ledge, and the system, instead of catching them, keeps quietly nudging them toward the edge. And it will keep happening for a simple reason. As long as we treat a senior in an RV as someone who chose it rather than someone barely holding on, as long as the law makes it harder every year to simply park and rest, as long as one broken transmission or one unpaid ticket is all it takes to turn a fragile home into no home at all, more older Americans who work their whole lives will keep sliding down this exact slope in near silence, right at the edges of the towns where the rest of us are still comfortable. Whether that stays true is not fixed. It's a choice about what we're willing to build and who we decide is worth catching. And it's one we haven't made yet. So I'll leave you with the honest question. If someone you love ended up behind those curtains, moving every night, one breakdown away from the street, how long do you think it would take before anyone noticed? Be honest with yourself. Then drop your answer below. I actually read them.